Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. It is mid-July, and right now we are doing a preview of the Pac-12 college football. That's right, we're kicking off our college football coverage already in mid-July. Right now we're talking with the best of the best when it comes to handicapping. West Coast Sports, Troy West from allplayswin.com. Troy West, are you pumped for college football?
Couldn't be more pumped right now, Pete. I'm still stuck in the moment. We're on a great run in baseball, but football is right around the corner. I can't believe it. Less than a month away before we kick off some preseason NFL. And, you know, Pete, obviously you mentioned it. We cover the Pac-12 exclusively. Not to say we don't cover other conferences as well, but couldn't be more excited for football season. I think we got a lot of winning advice. We had it last year, and guess what? We get better year in and year out. Got some great advice, and couldn't be more excited to be covering this conference with you guys.
All right, well, just for our nitpicking viewers, technically when you say you cover something exclusively, that is to say that you don't cover anything else. So you don't cover it exclusively. I think you're saying you specialize in it.
Specialize, there you go. Let's get specific. I specialize in the Pac-12.
Right. All right, well, what can you tell us about the Pac-12 North is where we'll start with, I guess the first question we have to ask Oregon. They are the favorite to win the North, currently minus 125 at 5 dimes. Win total's 9.5. Over is minus 115. They have to replace Marcus Mariota. The question is, how awesomely dominant will Oregon be compared with years past? What's your answer to that, Troy?
They're going to be just as good, if not better, Pete.
Wow.
This is a team that really returns the core of their team. Obviously, they return the coaching staff, which is huge. And then, Pete, a lot of people do know this, a lot of people don't. They are getting a transfer quarterback from Eastern Washington who has a national championship under his belt, a kid named Vernon Adams. The kid is outstanding. He's going to be really under the radar until he hits week 1. When you see this kid go, I mean, you may see a little bit of slip up in the offense compared to Marcus Mariota, but not a huge drop off. This team's going to be ready to go. They're playing in a weaker Pac-12 North. Not a lot of depth in the Pac-12 North. Oregon will dominate, and they will be in this Pac-12 championship game.
All right, so I mean, when we think of Oregon from years past, there were times when they got overvalued, but there were definitely times when they were a big favorite and still undervalued. They were just absolutely awesome, and if they were like down in the first half or not dominating the first half, they would come back and absolutely destroy people in the second half. You see the same type of things happening with Oregon.
Absolutely. This Pac-12 North is not necessarily known for its defense. Not a lot of good defensive teams in the Pac-12 North. The only tough matchup they're going to get is Stanford. I think this Oregon team, like I said, not a big enough drop off. Like you said, Pete, great analysis. They can be a second half team. A lot of times they get out to a slow start. They may get off to a slow start their first couple games. New quarterback, new system for him. But don't expect this Oregon team to be a big drop-off. Would not be surprised to see them in that Final Four playoff once again.
All right, well, then let's talk about Stanford. The only other team with relatively short odds to win the North. Stanford is plus 205 to win the North right now. The win total is 9 plus 130. And from what I can tell, we think of Stanford as a team that has a serviceable offense and an awesome defense. I'm thinking this year their offense might be a little bit better. Their defense, though, might be a little bit worse. There are some questions with depth and experience up front and in the secondary, which is a little bit new for Stanford. And then their offense, though, they have a third-year quarterback returning, and he was kind of up and down last year, but he closed the year up. They've got a strong deep rotation of tight ends, as they often do. So I'm thinking that we might see higher scoring from Stanford than we're used to. Slightly better offense and slightly worse defense. What do you think about that analysis, Troy?
I would definitely agree with you, Pete. They lost a lot of guys to the draft. They lost a lot of firepower to the draft. We know the gentleman named Ty Montgomery, a great special teams player and also one of their #1 wide receivers. He's no longer in that offense. But Pete, you take Kevin Hogan, like you said, a third-year veteran now. It seems like he's been there for 10 years. This is a really good, underrated quarterback, knows their offense really well. One thing we don't really analyze, Pete, is the coaching staff. Coach Shaw, who took over from Harbaugh, has been outstanding with Stanford. You got to give this team credit. There's a reason they're right behind Oregon. There's a reason they've beaten Oregon year in and year out. I think this team's going to be right on Oregon's ass. Do I think they're better than Oregon? No. But like you said, well-balanced, good offensive line, good defensive line, good solid quarterback. They'll be good as they always are, Pete. I think they'll be right around that 9-10 wins, and they'll compete to be in that Pac-12 championship game.
Okay, so you think that basically the defense is going to be as good as ever, maybe a small drop-off at most, or you think there's a chance it might take a big drop?
Small drop-off at most. This is a team that obviously recruits very well, one of the best academic schools in the country, so you get a lot of smart kids, and you get a lot of big, tough kids that go to Stanford. So small drop-off at best, but this is going to be a well-balanced team. To me, a really good bet throughout the course of the year. They get Northwestern week 1. That's a game I've already got circled. We can talk about that in another video, but this is going to be a team that's going to be a force to be reckoned with, without a doubt.
All right, yeah, I think the athletes, though, at Stanford are as dumb as athletes everywhere. I mean, they do, the smart schools, even the Ivy League, recruits for athletes. So just because the other kids there are smart doesn't mean that.
2 words, Andrew Luck, right? That guy represents what Stanford's all about. I do know you obviously get some dumb athletes, but rarely ever do you see a Stanford football team be undisciplined out on the football field. You typically see a team that's well-rounded, not penalized a lot, a good, solid, disciplined football team.
Okay, and then the other 4 teams in the Pac-12 North, all long shots: Cal, Washington, Washington State, and Oregon State. Obviously, definitely going to be a rebuilding lost year for Oregon State. Washington State probably improves a little bit from past years, but past years were lost years for Washington State. Washington takes a big loss in terms of personnel. And California, I'm thinking that might be a team that might be a little bit undervalued, at least to start the year. The offense is looking great, and the defense has always been a huge liability, but if it improves a little bit this year, I'm thinking that California, if they don't win more games than people are expecting, they might be undervalued and cover spreads. What's your take on any of those 4 teams, Troy?
Yeah, Pete, you did your homework without a doubt. I think Cal's that next tier team when it comes to the Pac-12 North. California's got what I think is one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Jared Goff. This kid is outstanding. Really got going with this offense last year. He's got a lot of weapons, and they get going quick, Pete. This is a fast-paced, high-flying offense that throws the football 50, 60 times a game. Very, very tough to stop. Defense rated one of the worst in the country last year, and that's what really held them back. I think they'll be better defensively. I think they'll focus a little bit more on the defensive end. Do I think they're going to be world beaters? No, but I do think they're around a 7-win team. Right. Probably make a bowl game. I think California's going to be a good football team.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. Right now, their win total on the year is 5.5. The over is plus 115, and I think that is going to be a good bet. But even if they don't get more wins than expected, I'm kind of looking, at least in the first half of the year, for California to be a good team to bet on week in and week out. It's just the first thing I'm going to be looking at with their games. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, and then Washington and Washington State, we know that, you specialize in the Pac-12, but you particularly specialize in Seattle area teams. Washington State, obviously, Washington's going to take a step back. That'll probably be accounted for in the lines. Washington State, possibly an improvement. I've been reading that they're not going to be as exclusively a passing team this year out of the shotgun, that they're going to run more running plays, and they are returning, some weapons on offense that'll probably be good for that. Maybe Washington State might be a little bit better than expected and be a good bet. What's your take on either Washington or Washington State?
I think both teams are going to be bad, and ugly, Pete. I think you're really going to see some really bad performances out of both these teams. Washington State lost several players to the draft. They lose their defensive tackle. They lose some wide receivers. They do got Luke Falk back at the quarterback position, brings back a veteran, a guy that can throw the football around the field a little bit. But the overall with both these teams, it's just bad. You look at Washington, lost several guys to the NFL draft, and this was a team that really didn't perform well even last year. They got blown out in their bowl game. They lose their quarterback. They got a quarterback situation that's an absolute mess. 3 different guys competing for the job, none in which that have really competed, earned the job. It's going to be a bad year. Pick your spots. You and I will talk throughout the course of the year, but there's going to be some really solid bets fading both these teams because they're going to be some bad football teams. 3, maybe 4 wins out of both. They do start with more of a cupcake schedule. Both these teams play some bad non-conference games, but once we get into the conference, they're going to be in trouble. Okay,
and I'm also thinking maybe about looking at unders for Washington State because, as I said, I've been reading that they are going to run a little bit more, pass a little bit less. The defense can't be much worse than it has been, might be a little bit better. Do you think that maybe we lean initially towards unders with Washington State?
Yeah, it's a good possibility. I think you're going to have to feel out the way that this team goes. Mike Leach, even though he says he likes to run the ball, we know this guy's history. Throw, and throw some more. So we'll see what happens with the dictate, but he's going to have to play this team out over the first couple of games to see what goes on. But I think, like I said, Pete, I think we're going to be fading both these teams a lot this year.
All right. Awesome thoughts to kick off the college football season. Troy West from allplayswin.com. Thanks so much. And now let's move on to the South.